make.
Those agreements are just two of the
Thanks for joining us for this 8 o'clock digital update on your Friday evening. We are live right now on all of our digital platforms. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, as well as our website and our news app. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are going to go through a couple of today's top stories and then also tell you what we have coming up for you tonight on The News at 11. We begin with what is really the biggest story today in Georgia. The governor's race is officially over. Stacey Abrams today effectively ended her race against Brian Kemp, acknowledging that there is no path for her to win, calling Kemp the next governor. She did speak today, but made it clear she is not conceding this race, rather just acknowledging that there's not a path to victory. Abrams says current law just allows her no further course to fight to be governor. However, Abrams says she does plan to file a lawsuit over the state election process and start a fight to revamp Georgia's voting laws. She says she plans to do that by opening up a new organization fighting for Georgia's voters' rights. Abrams held no punches, though, accusing Kemp of failing Georgians and failing democracy. Take a listen.
Make no mistake, the former Secretary of State was deliberate and intentional in his actions. I know that 8 years of systemic disenfranchisement, disinvestment, and incompetence had its desired effect on the electoral process in Georgia.
Okay, so Brian Kemp did release this statement. This is actually attributed to him. This is the first statement we've gotten from Brian Kemp since the election. That was the first time we've seen Stacey Abrams in public since the election. Kemp did hold a press conference a couple of days after the election, declaring himself the winner and talking about the transition to power. However, this is the first statement we've gotten directly from him since all the lawsuits were filed and the judge's rulings came out. The beginning of that, he starts off thanking Abrams for her passion, hard work, and commitment to public service. You then see the rest of the statement that is right here on your screen, or I should say another portion of the statement. It says, the election is over and hardworking Georgians are ready to move forward. We can no longer dwell on the divisive politics of the past, but must focus on Georgia's bright and promising future. So he appears ready to move forward. Abrams, not so much. She mentioned that lawsuit. She also really was very harsh with her criticism of Kemp and how he managed the election as the Secretary of State, saying he mismanaged it, that he stole the election. So she said all that. She did say she was praying that Kemp would be the governor for all of Georgia. So she did seem to acknowledge that there is no pathway for her to win, but she made it clear. If she said it once, she said it about 5 times, that she is not conceding in the race to be governor. The state can now certify the election. A judge had prevented the state from doing so before 5 o'clock this afternoon. So the current Secretary of State, Robin Crittenden, can now certify that election. It is important to note the person who will be the chief elections officer of the next election for Georgia has not been decided. That's because there is a runoff for the Secretary of State position. John Barrow and Brad Ruffensperger are running in December in that runoff. We'll give you more details as we get them about that, but local level elections officials cannot make that decision until the state certifies those results. Should happen today, could happen tomorrow, Sunday, or Monday. State law requires that it happens by Tuesday, though. Okay, moving right along now to a story we've been following all afternoon for you. Our Dow Candy has been following it since about 4 this afternoon in Vidalia. State and local law enforcers are searching for a gunman in a deadly shooting and robbery at this store in Vidalia. Police say the man walked into the R.J. Pope's Traditional Menswear. That's in the Palmer Place Shopping Center. All of this happened around 1:30 this afternoon. Police say the man shot the woman who was working there in a robbery and then he left. Police and the GBI are still investigating right now. They have not released the victim's name. If you have any information, of course, you are asked to call police. The police chief there says something like this has not happened in a long time in Vidalia, so they are presumably frantically searching for that gunman there. We'll keep you updated on that search. Once again, if you know anything about that, no matter how small it might be, pass it along. As they say, no lead is too small. We'll bring you that update as we get it tonight on the news at 11, as well as over the weekend on the news as well. Okay, an update for you tonight. We broke this story for you Wednesday on the news at 11. We now know what caused a fire at a multi-story building on East Taylor Street. So firefighters tell us it started in a chimney. It turns out somebody had moved into that apartment complex, or that building complex there, and did not know that their chimney was not in fact, their fireplace rather, was not in fact a working fireplace. So the chimney had a blocker in it. When they lit the fire in the fireplace, it caught that blocker on fire in the chimney. There was significant damage to that building, so it did displace about 11 people. Now is a great time to remind you, if you want to light up a fire ahead of the cooler weather, make sure you get that chimney checked. Make sure you get your fireplace checked. Also, make sure you check your heaters before you start them up. Always a good idea to get all that checked before the temperature gets much cooler, because those systems haven't been run in a while. So check your chimneys, check your fireplaces, and and check your heaters, though. Excuse me. Okay. Commission was today here in Chatham County. Every other Friday, if you follow local government, the commission meets to go over a list of things. They normally get updates from the police, from the fire department, from all the public agencies here in Chatham County. Today, we got an update from county leaders. They are starting the process of taking over the 911 center. We've been following this story for several months as the city and county demerged their police department. They also made a decision to let the county take over the 911 center. They said it would help with holes in services as well as some dead zones in Chatham County. So Chatham County is taking that over. It's set to be effective January 1st. Today, county leaders tell us they are still on schedule to take over by that date. They continue to prepare today by approving dispatcher retirement packages as well as a new backup system. Amanda LeBreau has all the details for us.
Those agreements are just two of the changes Chatham County has made here to the 911 center as it prepares to take it over in the next month and a half. Bigger changes with much bigger budgets are also on the way.
January 1st is what we call cutover, but there will be live cutovers in months after that.
County Manager Lee Smith says he's working proactively to get as many 911 services set up ahead of the operational switch at the start of the year. Today, commissioners approved Bullitt County dispatchers to take over Chatham County calls if the system here fails.
We have a backup to the backup to the backup, but for the person that needs someone, we have to do that.
That's one of two 911 center decisions made today.
911, where's your emergency?
The other about pension plans for dispatchers becoming new county employees.
No matter the emergency in this county, your telecommunicators are number one, they're front line. So we want to make sure they feel, safe, secure about employment, and that, we're going to look after them.
The county's also investing in new training and technology for them. Smith says the county's current dispatch system is 12 years old. He's hoping to put out a request for proposals for a new one in the next 9 months, maybe sooner. He says the county set aside about $2 million for capital improvements, including software. While all this change is happening internally, Smith says no one should notice it externally.
They should not feel a difference. You dial 911, somebody should pick up and walk you through. So this should be seamless.
Smith says Savannah actually had some money left in savings, and now it's giving the county $1.3 million to use for improvements here. At the 911 Center, Amanda LeBreau, WTOC News.
All right, thanks for that update there, Amanda. So once again, the county taking over the 911 center starting on January 1st. That looks like it's all we got right here. Going through some of the questions, looks like mainly just a lot of comments about the governor's race. I know there has been a lot happening in the last couple of weeks. I would remind you that no matter what end of the spectrum you're on here, let's keep these comments civil if we can, because eventually we're going to have to all kind of go in the right direction when we have the new governor. So I appreciate everyone weighing in, but like I said, let's try to keep the comments civil here. You're certainly entitled to your own opinion. That's part of living in America. But on our posts, let's try to keep them civil as we can. Carl Godby says, sounds like she's quitting, but she's not quitting. So she kind of made it clear that a concession would require her to acknowledge that what happened to her, that the win was an honest win, and she seems to think that Brian Kemp worked to suppress votes, so she doesn't feel like he honestly won the race. Now, that's up for her decision. That's not certainly anything that's just her opinion. So she said that. That's why she said she didn't concede, but she did acknowledge that she can't win. So a little bit of a difference there, because normally politicians will concede once the race is out of hand. But I think Abrams camp made it pretty clear that they weren't going to concede, because they felt like all along that Brian Kemp should have stepped aside as the Secretary of State. He obviously felt like the safeguards were in place to run an honest election. He feels like everyone who could voted did vote. So he says that he's done a good job by increasing the number of registered voters, as well as looking at the turnout. He says is proof that they have run a fair and honest election. So a lot could come from this. Like I said, Abrams just mentioned that she's planning to file that lawsuit. They have not done that. And it would also come under her new organization that she announced today. So it would not affect this race. Brian Kemp will be the governor-elect. Once the state certifies that, it will become official. But Abrams acknowledging that today was a big step in that being official. So the state can now certify the election. Brian Kemp will continue the transition to power with Governor Nathan Deal, and then he'll be sworn in on January 14th, I believe, but sometime early in January of next year for that term that starts. The runoff, as I said, is December 4th, so don't let all of this drama with the governor's race distract you from the fact that there is a runoff in that race. So if you plan to vote, circle that day, December 4th. You can also vote early. You can vote absentee as well. All of those details will be ironed out over the next few days as the state certifies the results and then plans the runoff. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on The News at 11. We've got a couple of updates for you. We'll have a little bit more from Stacey Abrams' press conference today. We'll also have some from Brian Kemp and his statement as well. But Danielle Lewan is working on a story she's been following for a while involving backlogged rape kits. Today, the state made the announcement that they have tested all of those backlogs. So there are no more rape kits waiting to be tested. Back in 2015 or 2016, one of those years, they passed a Senate bill that addressed how the state would go about testing all of those backlogged rape kits. So now they say that all of them have been tested. About 10% of them actually tested positive for an offender that was already in the database. So they're presumably making good progress on some of those cases. Danielle Lewan has that valuable update for us tonight. And we'll also check in on the governor's race. Another thing kicking off tonight, the operations across the border between Georgia State Patrol, South Carolina State Patrol, as well as Florida and Tennessee and Alabama and the other parts of the state. But we'll have more on that. Thank you so much for joining us. You can always join us tonight for our digital newscast at 10 o'clock, as well as our weather update at 9 o'clock. And then, of course, you can join us tonight on The News at 11. Have a great night.